It's letting me do it to my page, so I'm gonna have to figure it out next week.
Okay.
Good morning, good morning. We are back again talking about healing. For how many weeks have we been talking about healing now?
Just a few.
Just a few.
A handful.
I mean, we've talked about how this is a journey and it never really ends, so it's only fitting that we continue talking about healing. But hopefully this will be a really good episode for people that want to know what to expect as they start to go down this path, because I think that's kind of what gets people stuck or not wanting to continue, is the fear of what's going to come up as you start to unearth all of this crap, basically.
I think, yes, that is all of us, the fear that stops us always.
Yeah, and last week we talked pretty in depth about identifying where you're at so you can start the journey. And we dove deep into child trauma archetypes. And if you haven't listened to that episode, highly recommend you go back to that, because that kind of lays the stage for everything we're talking about today. And it gives you a starting point, because if you don't start to identify where you're at, it's kind of hard to understand where you're going to go or know where you're going to steer yourself. So with that said, we're talking about continuing on the journey today. Once you've decided healing is for me, I need to do some.
Yes.
What am I going to expect? What's going to be the potential fallout as I go down this path? Because I think we use the word fallout because it speaks to the fear.
Mm-hmm.
The fear that bubbles to the surface as we go further and further down this road. However, I think Kristin will agree with me on this. It's really scary at first, but the more you practice some of these things we're going to talk about, the easier it gets.
Yes, just like a muscle, the more you use it, the easier it gets.
The more empowered you feel.
Yeah.
Because really,
or you realize, that it's going to be okay. Like it's really, once you do it, it's like, okay, even if something bad came up, or even if something that, you didn't like the way it felt, it's okay. I didn't die. Nothing fell apart. Or if it did, it was in a good way. Sometimes things have to be deconstructed to get where they need to be, or be what they're supposed to be for you.
100%. I mean, we talk about some things have to unravel to come back together. And for a lot of us, as we go on this journey, that's kind of part of the package. We're going to start to unravel pieces of ourselves in our relationships, and even how we see ourselves in the world to a degree.
Oh, yes, 100%. I think, for some of us more than others, if you've had this persona that you've taken on, and you realize that's not you, it's not serving you, then it's hard, because who am I? Who am I going to be? But the great part is that, something brought you to this place. Something brought you to the place where you felt the need for it. So I think a lot of times for us, it's reminding ourselves that this is what we want. When it's hard, when the fear sets in, when you want to give up, it's like,
yeah. And I mean, the fear is real. I mean, for many of us, it's almost palpable. Like we feel it in our body.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
And, we're going to speak about that in May quite a bit, about how kind of the trauma we experience throughout our life ultimately manifests in our body for a lot of us. And we don't really even identify that that's what's happening.
No.
But that's for another day.
Yeah.
So if you're interested,
another topic for another day.
coming. But today I thought we'd start with kind of what I feel like is maybe the first step as you continue on this journey, or you kind of embark on it. And we talk about this concept a lot. And we call it the pause.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful pause that you will start to incorporate throughout your life and your day. And I like to say it's kind of when you're witnessing yourself. So you've identified, this is how I show up in the world. This is part of my trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
And it can look a lot of different ways. Maybe you never used your voice. Maybe you never speak up. Maybe you're always looking for attention. Like, these are all things that we develop as children. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, as we're trying to heal, it's now that we're aware, we can start to witness it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the piece, is like, as you see it. And sometimes, like we've talked about, it does get easier, but in the beginning, sometimes you're just even unaware that it's even happening. And then all of a sudden you see, you feel something, whether it's anger or frustration, or, like, wait, what is that? Once you start becoming aware that these things are happening, it's like, oh, okay. And why? Why do I feel this? What's going on?
Mhm.
um, and analyzing it so that you can make the change, make the switch. The awareness piece, we've talked about that many times, but that is so huge, and it continues to happen. And just when you think that, okay, I got this is good, then something will happen, something will come up, some stressor in your life, or some auto response, some way you've always been or always responded, whether it's with a different person or somebody. I always think of, when you go home, you know,
Yeah,
you just lapse right into those familial responses.
yeah, you
And
100% do. I was like,
yeah.
this is a way of deconstructing our autopilot in a sense, because it's again another term you're going to hear us talk about a lot.
Mhm.
You are operating mostly on autopilot. And I've been throwing out a lot of stats for people because I'm like, I really want to like almost hammer this point home. You
Mhm.
are only living in your conscious mind 5 to 10% of the time.
It's so unreal to think about, but it's true. If you
Mhm.
really analyze your life, it's like, how much do I really consciously decide, in the moments of your day?
Yep. And I think it's those moments where we're having friction or stress or something doesn't feel right to us. Those
Mm.
are the exact moments to take that pause and be like, okay, what is happening here? And
Mhm.
I know in speaking with a lot of women, because, both Kristen and I coach women pretty much exclusively, judgment is a huge theme that comes up with so many women, and why we don't speak up, why we don't speak our truth per se,
Yeah.
because we're so afraid of the judgment of other people.
And
We're
we don't
so
even think
afraid of
about
not
it.
being
We don't.
liked.
Right. Oh, and we don't even think about that. Like, it's so automatic. It's so ingrained in us that we do that. And so the training ourselves to become aware of it
Yep.
and to challenge it is like, so what? Why do I care? Why do I really care?
Yeah, it's funny. So I thought I'd share a story that I shared with Kristen yesterday when I was listening to another therapist kind of talk around this idea, especially with women, because she says this happens for everyone to a degree, but it's very pervasive with women that we grow up, we're taught to be lovely, to not rock the boat, not speak our truth, like just be a good girl. Like it's something as women we are taught. There are exceptions to the rule always, but if you really think about it, most women like we're taught to kind of fit into this box. So we don't speak up, and we don't for most of our life.
Yeah,
And
becomes a
now here we
pattern.
are. Yeah, we're trying to heal and we're trying to find our voice, and there is going to be some stress around it. There's going to
Some
be
more,
some
some
tendency.
more than others. Yes.
Yeah. And it's recognizing it as it's coming up, because where is the judgment coming from?
Mhm. Mhm.
And be like, okay, when was I judged as a child? Is one piece of it, because it was probably a prevalent pattern in your childhood,
Mhm.
or you were overly criticized. So you never felt like you could speak up.
Mhm.
So to think that you're going to overnight go from a place of not speaking up to speaking your truth, like on the regular, it's
Not
not going to work
realistic
that
at
way.
all, not realistic.
No. And I mean, I think that's what everyone hopes as
Mhm.
they start doing this, right? Like, I'm going to find my voice. And it's like, yeah, you will, but it's a practice, right? Like Kristen said, it's a muscle you develop, and it starts small. So,
Mhm.
Kristen, talk about how you can start to develop this muscle. Like, how did you start developing this muscle in your life and speaking up more when you normally would have stayed quiet?
I know, for me, it was starting with the small things. And for me, it was actually taking the pause and thinking about, what do I really want? because it had become such a pattern in my life that I always was going to be the malleable one. I was always going to be the one that was like, it's okay. I don't really care. And there are some things that it is very true. I really don't care. Either way is fine with me. But I started practicing when I did have a strong feeling about something. I mean, and something as small as what you want to eat, when everybody's talking about where do they want to go, what restaurant, what food do you want tonight,
Yeah, and you
kind of.
do that. No, not that. No, not that.
But I mean, I always was just like, oh, it's fine, it's okay, it's all right, like, yeah, I'll just whatever the majority wants, I'm good with. And most of the time I am, but I started making myself have an opinion and voicing that opinion. So that's kind of this very, very small piece where I started, is like realizing, okay, what do I want? And that it's okay to be the one that makes the decision. It's like, it's okay. And if not everybody wants it, because then that piece would be like, okay, well, most people were fine with it, but a couple people weren't. And
Mhm.
I would feel inside literally like that I don't, that tingly, like, oh my gosh, somebody's upset. It's like, you know what? It's okay. It's all right. It,
Well, and
but for me, that was, I mean, it sounds, now saying it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. Like, really, you had gotten to that place? Because I feel, especially I'm a strong person. And in most of my life, I, have succeeded and I'm strong, and people would never expect that from me. But that was how the patterning that I started to become with, especially with, people that you care about, family, close friends, things like that. How
yeah.
about you? What was something small you started with?
Um, I think I just started to, like you said, practice in small ways, having more of an opinion. I mean, people who know me know I have an opinion generally, but I don't always share it freely. I have definitely caught myself holding back with certain audiences,
Mm,
even my own husband or bosses, where I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be received well, or I overthink it. It's my,
yes.
I say
Oh,
it's my Gemini overthinking. I'm like, okay, how do I best say this to them? Because I do consider myself somewhat of a chameleon. Like I can tailor messages pretty well to who I need to speak to. So I'm
I had
always
that thought yesterday. I was chameleon. Had that same thought yesterday.
yeah.
I'm like, that is what I have been all of
Mhm.
my life. I know how to be with each audience and each
Mhm.
person.
Yeah. So then it's deciding, okay, great. I'm a chameleon, which can be a great gift. I'm able to get on people's level and speak to them the way they need to be spoken to. But at the same time, where am I compromising myself in
Yes.
the process? Um, and it was looking at those instances. Where was I not speaking up because it was a fear reaction, or like I was avoiding some sort of conflict?
Yes. The
I have,
con. Yes.
if you asked me for most of my life, I'd be like, I hate conflict. I don't want to have conflict. Like I even talking about it right now, I'm like, I really don't like the word.
Yes. That's so funny.
So,
Yes.
and it's funny because me and my husband are very different on this, in this respect. It's like I wouldn't say he's pro conflict, but he's much more apt to lean into conflict where I'm like, can we just have a conversation?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I'm like, I don't want to yell. I don't want to get overly upset. Part of that's my personality.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to change who I am at my core, but I've had to learn like some conflict is okay. Rocking the boat sometimes is okay if it means I'm standing up for myself. Because like you, I was giving away my power in
Mhm.
so many ways, so many times throughout my life,
Yeah.
where I would just go along and go with the flow. Whatever. We need to move for a job. Okay, I'll figure it out. Like
Right.
whatever it was, I was very adaptable.
Yeah. You just take care of it. You'd handle it.
And if I look back, I could only count like a handful of times I had really stood up for myself and been like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
And now that I've been in the practice more and I've continued on this journey, I have to say, I feel so much more empowered every time I practice saying no or being like, nope, don't want to do that, or I'd rather do this.
Yeah.
And it's still something I'm practicing. We talked about this
Oh,
yesterday too. I was like,
yes. Yes.
my coaches catch me because they're like, well, why are you doing that? Why don't you just ask for what you really want? It's like, I'm still trying to sidestep it.
Yeah.
The tendency is still, maybe I can meet in the middle.
Because it is a practice. You're gonna, it's being aware of it every time. And you're never gonna be able to do it completely,
Mm-hmm.
do it the way you want to do it every single time. It's a practice, and it's like we always say, it's the journey. But it's so worth it. And I think that so often, or in the past, and even now, I find myself, when like you were talking about those conversations, like where you just know, if I say this in this way, it's going to cause conflict. And like you were speaking when you were talking about, a little conflict is good, and I think it's necessary in life. But I think you and I have that in us, where we go to, well, a little bit of conflict is going to mean huge conflict, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always lead there. And that's the thing I have to always remind myself of, is like, it's still better to speak your truth, speak what you want, speak it. And then if it goes to a big conflict, you'll figure it out. It'll be fine. You'll work it out, but most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it's just back and forth, and like, oh, okay. You come to a compromise, or the other person doesn't really care. You think they care, they don't really care.
True. It's true. I mean, we compromise ourselves so much more than we even realize most of the time because of that conditioning. We're just like, no, I don't even think about it
It's what
until
I've
someone
always
asks me the
done.
question sometimes. They're like, why did you do that?
Yes.
Why did you have that response? And to me, conflict always meant unproductive conversation.
Mm.
That was the correlation I
Yep.
made. As soon as it goes to conflict, this is not going to be productive. I'm going to get defensive. They're going to get defensive. It's going to be like an F you.
And yeah,
Nothing will get resolved,
right.
which
Right.
is my understanding of conflict. Isn't necessarily what conflict means.
No.
That's
No.
what I learned as a child. Like if I speak up, I start a conflict, there's no winning. So
Right.
that's the other concept. I'm like, why is this about winning?
Yes, yes, that's the other piece for sure.
It's like,
We
whose
always
team
feel like
won?
somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong,
Mhm.
and that is not true.
And we
That's
don't like
another
to be
lie
wrong.
we tell ourselves. Yes, yes, and nobody who wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong.
I mean, you'll say, it's funny how many people will say, I don't care if I'm wrong.
Yeah, those are the people that do. Every time you hear that,
Yeah. It's like, no, it never feels good to be wrong.
nobody wants that. Nobody.
But being able to admit when you are, I think is huge. And that's part of what you become better at too when you go on this journey. I feel like as I'm having these
Growth.
difficult conversations, stuff is coming up, I'm having to somewhat apologize for the way I've been in certain instances. It's difficult, but I feel like I'm getting closer to people than I ever have before because they're getting to see the real me for
Exactly.
once.
Exactly.
And
You
it's like,
didn't
I'm
have.
sorry, that's not who I was. That's just how I was conditioned to be. And it's like you're apologizing for hurt. And sometimes people are apologizing to you for the hurt. So there's a lot of difficult conversations. So
Yeah.
this is a perfect segue into this having of the difficult conversations. Because yesterday on my Instagram, I challenged people to basically go have one difficult conversation, to start small. And it's the same thing Dr. Shafali, who I mentioned earlier, who was talking about being a lovely, lovely lady and never speaking up, what we're trained to do. That's her advice too. Like, you have to start with the smallest thing. Can you
Mhm.
have one conversation that
Mhm.
you've been avoiding?
Mhm.
You think it's going to be difficult, or you think they're going to respond in a way that is going to stress you out or piss someone off.
Mhm.
Because the flip side of it, and the way Dr. Shafali explained it, which was so like, it was like a mic drop moment for me, was, so you're afraid of pissing someone off, but the person you're pissing off has never really known the real you because you've not been authentic to this point. So who are you pissing off? Like, they're pissed at the person you used to be, maybe?
Yeah.
So it's like this whole aha of I'm coming to terms with who I actually am, and there's going to be some fallout in that.
Mhm.
There's going to be some really good stuff that happens, like, ugh, I get to finally be who I am, but then there's also, at least for me, this feeling of like I needed to come to terms with or either apologize for certain things to be like, that wasn't me.
Mhm.
And I know I've created some hurts along the way because I just was being who I thought I was.
I think it's that disappointment factor. We don't want to disappoint people. And if we suddenly show them who we really are, they're going to be disappointed.
Hmm.
Or that's the fear that they're going to be disappointed or they're not going to be happy with who I am. And it's like, well, then if they're not happy with who you really are, then maybe they're not supposed to be in your life anyway.
I mean, that's tricky and that's scary.
Hard. Yeah, it's
That's
scary.
hard for people because now you're thinking, am I ending long-term relationships as a
Mhm.
result of this?
Mhm.
And, there is no simple answer to this.
Yeah.
You may not, depending on what surfaces in the process. I mean, I've had some really difficult conversations with family and friends where we almost all didn't know how to respond
Yeah.
because we're all trying to process, what's coming up.
What's happening? Yes, what's actually
Yeah, and
happening.
it's like sometimes we leave things kind of open-ended,
Mhm.
or we're giving each other space to process and be like, okay, what does that mean for our relationship?
Mhm.
How is this going to be different? And is it
Mhm.
going to work?
Yeah.
And it's also very different. And I don't know if you can speak to this. If one person is on this healing journey, like you're in it, and the other person has not touched it,
Yeah.
they're still living their conditioning, their autopilot, and they're
Mhm.
trying to grapple with you changing, and they're very skeptical.
Yeah. They're
Like,
like,
no.
what is this even? Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've experienced that. I don't know if you have, where it's like they've almost literally told me, I don't know if I can see you as anyone other than who I know you to be.
Mm.
And
Oh,
you're like,
interesting.
okay, I don't know how to exactly deal with that.
Right, right.
Um, but it's
Yeah, that's on
a
them.
fair
That is
statement.
on them. Yeah, it's on them though to figure that out. I think and we tend to want to figure it out for them
Mhm.
or make it better.
Yeah, or explain away, like,
Yes, yes.
but it's like, okay. It's like giving people space too to do their own processing.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, the longer you've been in a relationship with anyone, and the
Hmm.
longer you've been on autopilot, the more stuff there is.
Yeah.
There's more
And it's a
instances.
good point. I think part of dealing with the fallout is also giving people space. Um, as you're changing, they're not knowing what to expect or how to deal with it. And sometimes just like, in an argument or something, sometimes you both have to just walk away and come back. And I think that sometimes I know for me is always the hardest. I want resolution. I
Mm,
want it to be all happy again. I want it to be all good again. It's like that's my nature. That's my conditioning. That's
just
been
fix
who
it.
it's who I am. I'm the fixer. I'm to make everybody, bring everybody together and make it happy. And I think sometimes that's the hardest piece is to like leave something what I consider unresolved, but realizing that that is a gift that you're giving yourself and the other person because you both get to walk away, think about it, cool down, like, or whatever it is. But sometimes it's just processing that
Yeah.
processing piece. You can't process things in the moment. That's not how it works, like as human beings because of our own conditionings, our own thought processes, or what we've made things to mean.
Yeah.
It takes some time, and so I think it's encouraging. I would encourage people to hold on to that piece. Give yourself time. Give the other people in your life time to process,
Mhm.
and don't judge it. Don't make it mean something it's not. And I know for me, I read into everything. And so when somebody's
Guilty.
yeah, somebody's look changes. It's like,
Yep.
oh, you just have to let it be. And it's hard
Well,
sometimes. So,
and we can't control other people's reactions. We can only control our own. So you don't know what's going to happen when you start to have these conversations. And that is the scary part. You honestly don't know. You can best case, worst case scenario it to your
Right.
heart's content.
Hmm.
Like they're going to fully accept me. This is going to be great. We're going to have like this deeper, more connected relationship, which is one way it can go. Or it's like, oop, we do not mesh anymore. I
Yeah.
don't know that had we both shown up as our authentic selves, we would have been in this relationship.
If at all, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That
there's a lot
happens.
of that.
Yeah, it happens. But the relief, no matter what, as much as it's, the conflict may be hard, the situation, the relief that comes from being who you really are, and to be able to show up in all of your relationships authentically is there's a weight that comes off, because you're not having to be the chameleon, you're not having to put on this persona, and in the end, that's where I think we all want to be, or we wouldn't have started on this journey in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, we've always liked the notion of like cutting through the crap. Like, I just want to stop pretending. Like, can't we all just be who we are? I mean, I
Yes.
think all of us have those thoughts.
Oh,
And it's like
absolutely.
you're around certain people and you cannot help yourself. You just adapt, mold, shape yourself to whatever you feel like you need to be for them.
Yeah. It's a
And
censoring, like how much have you censored your conversation, or censored your views on something, or your opinion about something for other people?
because they won't accept you, they won't love you. I mean, let's face it,
Well,
we're wired for connection. We want people to love us, like us. So we do all these things.
mhm,
We over accommodate,
mhm.
and it's exhausting for a lot of us. It's exhausting. And I mean, I especially see this in leadership and business too. Like, this is a major struggle for people that are, especially women leaders,
Yeah.
where they really grapple with dueling personas.
Mhm.
Like, this is who I show up in my business life, and this is who I am in my personal life. And if you're in a situation where you get to see both of these personalities per se come
Mhm.
out, like I've seen this in play where you go to a work function that's outside of work, and all of
Yes,
a sudden you
yes.
see this different person and you're like, where has she been?
Yeah, who
I
are
want to hang out
you?
with this girl.
Yeah, right. I
And
like
at
this one.
work, oh, what? And
Yeah.
it's like your mind is now trying to process, like,
What happened?
wow,
Yeah.
like your immediate instinct is almost like, what damage do you have? Which is a judgment. So you cut yourself in the judgment, but then it's like, oh my gosh, you start to feel so much compassion for people, because it's like, you are living so inauthentically. You don't even know which one is you.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're so struggling with your own authenticity.
Yeah.
And a lot, you ask any leaders, and I've asked some, like, why do you feel like you need to be that way at work? Who do you feel like you truly are? And if you could show up that way at work, what would it look like? I mean, I coached a woman around this too, because it's like, I felt like I needed to be so like managerial and buttoned up and almost impersonal. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, why? I'm like, doesn't that stress you out
Yeah.
that you have to do that? It's almost like a game you're playing. And that's just finding boundaries too.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I mean, you can't just go out and party with all your coworkers if you're their
Right.
boss,
Yeah.
but you can also be a normal person.
Be human. I say be human.
You can
Still be human.
you can share your feelings, you can show compassion and empathy, and have the difficult conversations,
Mhm.
and with kindness, because you're a human. But it's like there's such a deep separation, I think, as women climb the ladder in business too, where it's like, nope, I need to be this way.
Well, and I think it, just like in our families and our upbringing, is the conditioning and the atmosphere of each individual company. But if you want to generalize businesses as a whole, I think there is, there's still it's getting better, but there's still such a double standard. And like a woman, if she, especially the higher you get, especially, as you take on more and more responsibility and leadership roles, it's very, very difficult, because you almost do have to be
Both.
someone different in those, like, because it's a hard thing, and it's finding those boundaries and finding those ways where you can be authentic and be yourself without being labeled something. It's like you're either labeled you're bitchy or you're too easy, like
Bitchy, bossy,
yeah, it's like a man can have the same, standard,
and he's a leader.
and he's a strong leader.
Yep.
But a woman, she's just, you know, it's sad. I'm glad to see, though. I feel like the world is changing
Mhm.
slowly, but
Slowly, more
some
slowly
of
than we
would
hoped.
want, yeah. But
But
that is very, that's a whole nother issue through with business and being a leader. It's
but I
hard.
love I love that you brought up the term label, because I talk to people about this a lot too. What are the labels you are wearing?
Mhm.
Maybe they were assigned to you, but are they really you?
Right.
And then also, when you're not in the healing work, you tend to live almost by these very superficial labels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, when I ask a woman who she feels she really is, she starts tying things like her job title, the number of children she has, that she's a wife, a daughter. And you're like, okay, that's like,
I get all that, but
yeah. I was like, that's part of who you are. I wouldn't say that's your identity. I mean, some women are very tied to those identities, like who I am at work. Like, I'm a career woman. That's my strong identity. Or I've always wanted to be a mother, so that's what I most identify with. But like, who are you? What are
inside.
your labels?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, start taking off some of those other labels, especially the ones that aren't serving you. You
Mhm.
get to choose them. I mean, maybe they're assigned to you. Someone else has slapped that label on you, but it's your choice whether you keep
You don't
wearing
have
it.
to take it. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another piece, is that choice is such a huge piece, is because that is, we forget that. We really think I don't have a choice. It's what was given to me. It's what's expected. It's what, it's like, but you always have a choice. And it's reminding yourself, giving yourself permission to have the choice. We don't give ourselves permission enough in everything. I feel like in everything. We just feel like it's, well, this is me. This is what I have to do. Like,
Yeah. And I think as you go on this journey and you continue and you deal with the fallout, you keep seeing more and more the choice you have. Whereas in the past, you may have been like, there is no choice. Even if it's a difficult choice you're grappling with as you're healing, you recognize there is a choice. And a lot of the times you're choosing,
mhm.
in the words of one of my favorite people, Brene
Yeah.
Brown, you're choosing courage over comfort, right? I'm going to
Mm.
tell you, I'm going to
Yeah,
I'm going to speak my
exactly.
truth no matter
Exactly.
what happens, cuz you're getting confident in your own skin for once, and that's pretty big.
I'm sorry, my internet,
You're all good. So
are you
keep
there? Okay.
practicing the confidence piece through courage, because I think those two things get confused a lot, and I coach a lot of women around confidence because they feel
Mm.
like, I need more confidence. It's like, no, you don't
That's
need more
what, well, that's been, yeah, that's been thrown around so much lately. It's like, well, if I just had confidence, 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 and it's like,
courage precedes confidence.
mhm, yeah, taking the
One act
step,
of courage.
yeah. Well, like you encouraged them yesterday, have the conversation.
Yep. I said,
That will
either
give you the confidence to have the next conversation.
exactly. And it's like, think of courage as the muscle that builds
Yeah.
confidence.
Mhm,
So every conversation you have builds that muscle,
mhm.
and it gets a little bit easier, a little bit easier. And then you're having these conversations more often than not. Like, you're not holding back anymore.
Right, right.
You
You
feel
step right
bold,
in.
you feel empowered. You're like, I don't need to do
Do that.
what I always used to do. And people now, you're setting a new precedent,
Mhm.
especially with the people that are closest to you in your life. It's like, now they know. It's like once you go down that path, there's no like having to re-explain it.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh,
you rip the band-aid off. You're like, no, this is just how it's gonna be.
yeah.
We either find new terms on which to like have a foundation for this relationship, or maybe it doesn't work.
Right.
But if you're not willing to have that conversation, you get to keep being in that zone of stress and conflict and feeling disempowered.
Hmm.
Keep showing up as the person you've always been and grapple with that.
I say again, back to the choice piece, that is your choice. You have the choice to stay however you were, if
Mhm.
that serves you.
Yeah.
But I think if, the people who, when you start down the path, you realize there was a reason you started this journey.
Yep.
The reason that you're here is because you don't want to be that way.
This is true. So let's give the ladies something practical they can use. I mean, we've given them one thing, have a conversation.
Have a
And I
conversation.
would say, have a conversation where either you're saying something that you need to tell someone that you've been holding back, or this is the flip side. And I feel like a lot of us know we need to have this other kind of conversation where we know someone in our life wants to tell us something
Something, yes.
that we haven't wanted to hear. And that's almost harder to me because it's like, ooh,
I would agree. I
the
would
ego.
agree.
The ego wants to protect me. I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you slander me or
Tell
character
me
assassinate
something.
me. That's where we go. It's like you're going to say something and it's going to hurt my feelings. But it's like, wouldn't you rather know?
Yeah.
Because then you can do something about it.
Hmm.
And from a
Exactly.
space of not being defensive, but just like wanting to listen with the intent to understand and be like, hey, that's part of my conditioning. That's why that was happening. That's why I showed up that way. So that's a two-pronged approach. Like either have a
I agree. I
conversation where
agree.
you
Yeah.
tell or you listen.
Or ask something that that you haven't wanted to hear.
Ask a question where it's like,
Uh,
that fear of judgment's gonna bubble up, but like go with it.
yes. Yeah.
Go with it. Like we said, this takes practice. It's not doesn't get easier until you start doing it more.
Yeah.
So one step, that's one practical thing you can do. I would also say for me, intention setting too has been a big thing. And I do it pretty much on the daily. I'm like, okay, how do I intentionally want to show up today? And can I check against that?
Yeah.
And your intention may be the same for an entire month when you're just starting on this. You're like, maybe my intention is to speak my truth. And you just keep reminding yourself. And then you look back at the end of the day and you go, did I hold back anywhere?
Yeah.
And why?
It's asking yourself, analyzing what happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Those are
mean, this is really for the journalers that are listening, or people who like to keep reflections or personal um, stories of what's going on in their life, whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
People who want to adopt a new habit. But for me, journaling has been really important in seeing my progress,
Yeah.
because I can be like, ooh, I could even say, what's one conversation I had today, or give myself that target.
Yeah.
One, I don't want to say difficult or uncomfortable, but one conversation maybe I wouldn't have had in the past.
Yeah.
One truth I spoke today that I wouldn't have in the
Yes.
past.
That's right. That's right.
It can be
But
that small.
but
Even
it
if it's, even
helps.
as like Kristin said, saying, I don't want pizza for dinner.
Yep. Something
Sometimes
simple.
that's where you got to start.
Yeah. Yeah. The intention is good, and who you want to be or something that you want to accomplish. Um, and because it's so easy to go back to our conditioning and our autopilot if we don't set that in our mind to start with.
So what would you say? What's another practical piece of advice or a tip someone could use to help keep them in the journey and not be so scared of the fallout?
I would think what you were saying is good. It's a very good practical step, and it's one of those to I think I would encourage taking the time at the start of your day, before you rush on to your day, is just take that pause. Like, okay, here's a new day. new conversations, new things I'm going to get into. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up? How do I want to show up today?
Mhm.
And then whatever you need to do to convince yourself, that okay, you feel that conversation's coming, do it. Have the courage to make the choice and have the courage to have the conversation.
Mhm.
And it will empower you, and it will make you, even if it's no matter how the outcome is, the fact that you kept the promise to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing we talked about yesterday that was like, we're like, what's an even simpler entry point to this? Because some people just get terrified at the idea of having a face-to-face conversation with someone because you
Yes.
can't escape.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
you're there. It's like you can't run away. I mean, you could, but that would be weird, right? um, is send someone a text message. I wouldn't recommend getting into a habit of continuing to send people text messages,
Yeah.
but if you're really, really grappling with the fear of it and you want a way to speak your truth, but not have to like really be in it in the moment and
Yeah.
deal with it,
Right.
you said you could send a text message and walk away from your phone for 15 minutes, an hour, half of the day, however long. You could look at the response and be like, I'm
Ah!
afraid to read it. You're going to read it at some point. But if I'd say that is the easiest access point. Like if you're just like, I need to send someone something that I need to tell them or ask them a question about something you need to hear, that can take away a little bit of that fear. We can kind of hide behind the phone or
Yeah.
the computer for a certain amount of time until we feel like that courage is
Yeah.
building.
To continue. Yeah. Something small. Start a conversation, at least,
You might be surprised at the response too, where you're like, okay, I can have a real conversation now. Like
Oh,
I needed
absolutely.
to break the ice.
Break the ice. Yes, exactly. Dipping the toe in.
Yep. Just going to give this a try and see how it goes.
Mhm.
And the more you do that, especially with the people closest in your life, I feel like, because that's really where a lot of the stress and the conflict you're feeling comes from. Just start doing it a little bit at a time.
And you owe it to yourself for sure for that, but you also owe it to the people around you. If you love them the way you say you do, you need to let them see all of you. Be
Yeah.
authentic and
Yeah.
true.
And the last thing I will say about it too is if you have one of these conversations and you feel that defensiveness rising or that like, I'm going to say something that
No regret.
I don't want to say right now, another moment for the pause
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can choose in that moment to take a beat and be like, okay, maybe this is something I need to look at. Because I always say when you start to, when someone says something to you that makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel defensive, that is a perfect cue for you to examine why
I
you
yeah.
feel triggered in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's on you, that's not on them.
Mm-mm.
They have said something that's triggering something inside of you.
Right.
Why? So if you can't deal with it in the moment, just tell them that. Like, I need a minute to process this,
Yeah, it's like,
or
okay.
I need a couple days to process this.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to go into defending yourself or having that conversation if you're feeling like you're not in a place
To
to
have
do
that. Yeah.
it. Because I think we try and do that too. It's like, I'm going to force it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is going so bad now. Because now I'm defensive. I'm putting that out onto them. They're getting defensive. So the whole thing is just
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah.
Be willing to examine what that's saying about you when you feel triggered.
Mhm. Yeah. You don't have to, like, going back to the other conversation, is that you don't have to resolve everything
No.
right that moment.
And you won't.
Often it's better not to.
You won't. It's a process. And like we said, the longer you've been in those relationships, the more you may feel there is to resolve,
Mhm.
or the
Well,
more
so many
conversations you're
layers.
gonna have to have.
There's so many layers to it.
Yeah. I was like, you could talk for like a month and probably never clear all of the stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
So patience, witnessing yourself in the moment, documenting it, if that will help you know, like, hey, this was a win today. Normally I would have done this, but I didn't.
I paused. I
Yeah.
took
I
a
was like,
breath.
maybe you showed some restraint when usually you're just like,
Mhm.
claws come out immediately. I'm like,
Right?
that is progress. If that's been your tendency where you're just like, ooh, you hear something, you get defensive, and it's like, game on, and you actually showed restraint,
Yeah.
you might shock the person you're
That's
talking to too.
right. Right.
Like, ooh, there's some like real growth going on here. Like, you're not just doing what I expect.
Yep. Yep.
So I think that's what I would leave everyone with today. Like, take a little bit of the fear factor out of it, understand it's a process. Like we said, it's developing that courage muscle,
Mm.
finding your voice, speaking up, knowing that it gets better. As scary as it feels when you're starting, it gets a lot easier, and it feels so empowering when you get to the point where you're no longer afraid to have those conversations.
Exactly. Each step is a step closer to where you want to be.
Yes. So take those steps. We want to hear how it goes. We want to hear, like, how afraid were you going into it? How did it actually go? Did you take the pause? How did you respond? Um, how did you feel like it improved the dynamic in your relationship?
Yeah.
Well, it's
That's
been
good.
fun. We will see you guys again next week. Hope everyone has a great weekend and continues on this healing journey. It's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. Make the choice to continue.
All right. Bye, ladies.